Hello, in this video I talk about the European Super League and fan protests recently and the role of capitalism. Let's do this. So, in the debate recently, you had Gary Neville representing the average football fan. He was pictured fist bumping with some of the protesters at Old Trafford, and he has been quite vocal about the need for radical reform in football.
However, the Glazer family 2 weeks ago, they tried to implement something that would have damaged every single community in this country that's got football at the heart of it, and that is why they're dangerous. Perez is dangerous, Laporte, Agnelli, they are dangerous to the concept of equal opportunity and fair play in European football. Let's not forget what we're arguing about here. Today there is anger. I would hope tomorrow it switches towards mobilisation, towards reform and regulation and behind the fan-led review. And what I would say is, I accept, and I might be a little bit naive here, but when I talked 2 weeks ago about these two football clubs, Manchester United and Liverpool, they should act like the grandfather of English football, demonstrating compassion, spreading the wealth through the family, their experience, being fair. They haven't done. They've demonstrated self-greed and tried to walk away with all the money themselves and left the family struggling below. That is not what you do at this football club or at Liverpool Football Club. So whether the Glazer family have been good or bad, what they did 2 weeks ago is not acceptable, and an apology is not good enough. And Joel Glazer saying that he wants to rebuild the trust with the football fans of this club. He never had the trust. He's never communicated to them. He's never spoken to them. He's never said a word. So today we can be angry. The game may not go ahead. The fans are angry, but they've protested peacefully, and we have to accept that you're allowed to protest in this country, and it's every person's right. But tomorrow it's about reform and regulation, because there are 6 or 7 people within English football who have it under their control, and that control has to be taken away from them.
You cannot argue with Gary Neville's points. Maybe you can say he is a hypocrite. He earned his fortune being paid handsomely by Manchester United and Sky. Also, he has a vested interest in the non-formation of the ESL. He is an owner of Salford City, a team who pay triple the amount of wages compared to other teams in the same division, in the hope that one day they can be in the Premier League. But Gary Neville would be directly affected by the formation of the ESL. Neville said himself he is pro-free market. He has benefited from free markets. He has accumulated power and wealth by being a property developer. He has turned buildings into shoebox apartments, but on this matter, he is not pro-free market. He has one foot in and one foot out. But maybe we are all similar in a capitalist world. Maybe we all have one foot in and one foot out. The Glazers bought Manchester United in 2005. But it was a leveraged buyout, and this is a similar way to how most people buy houses. You don't have the money, so you borrow the money from the bank based on the value of the house, or in this case the club. Therefore you acquire debt, and as homeowners or as club owners you try to pay off that debt. You decorate the house, you spend a fortune on players, but in the hope that the house price or the club price will go up, and then you sell your house at a profit. Graeme Souness tried to offer an explanation of this in the debate recently.
They bought the club. They weren't soccer people. They weren't. Yeah, this is an institution. This is one of the great footballing institutions in the world. They knew what they were buying. They knew no matter how well the team were doing out there, they would still have a fan base arguably second to none in world football. So this was a wonderful chance to buy this football club, a great investment, and they've made a lot of money out of it. And why shouldn't they if there was something on day one? And I think they've obviously made improvements. The stadium, the commercial department, the success they've had, which goes back through Fergie. In terms of what they think about the fans, I think they proved 2 weeks ago in trying to form, when we heard of it 2 weeks ago, in trying to form a Super League, not a lot. Or what they're saying is we're taking the home-based fans for granted. Yeah. The new market's Asia. Let's target there.
The ESL was owners trying to guarantee a return on their investment. This is happening in all walks of life in a capitalist world. People invest into something and then they abuse their power to guarantee or to protect their investment. Power and wealth is being hoarded. It's being collected by the very few at the top. Florentino Perez of Real Madrid has said some crazy things in all of this, but he has talked about the importance of protecting the big clubs for the sake of football. But I think the so-called trickle-down effect has been damaging football, not helping it. The trickle-down effect are policies designed to help the wealthier companies or the richer people to get richer. And this creation of wealth at the top will eventually trickle down to the general public in the form of jobs. But I don't know if this creation of wealth for all is happening, and there seems to be, in the world, a growing inequality between the rich and the poor. But the big clubs have arguably been hit the hardest by COVID and the lockdown. This financial year will see all big clubs report huge losses. No fans in the stadium has reduced revenue dramatically, but the players still need to be paid their high salaries. I have always defended the high salaries of the elite footballers. It is one of the hardest professions to be successful in. There are millions, billions maybe, of people all trying to do a relatively few number of jobs. And there is a lot of money in football. So I think the money should go to the players, not to the owners. But in these times, the high salaries are crippling these big clubs. They are losing money. Well, the profits are not as much as they were. And the ESL was an attempt to recover some of the money lost. But it has highlighted the need for reform to football in England. The fans have had enough. They have had enough of not being consulted on any big decisions taken by the club. But any new owners coming into Manchester United or Arsenal will try to exploit the fans in a similar way. John Barnes talked about it in a recent interview.
But I tend to not listen to too much noise in the last 2 days and try and analyse what's been happening. And what's been happening is there's been a power struggle between elite groups to control football, to exploit the fans. That's all it was. It's just a question of who's going to exploit them. So now that ESL is not going to exploit them, it'll be the same old guard. FIFA, UEFA, the Premier League, the big clubs. Because if the fans really want, all of those Chelsea fans outside the ground, how many of them do you think can get tickets for the game? How many can afford the £150 shirts? How many can afford their Sky subscriptions? So it's about still exploitation of the fans. This is what this is. It's just a question of who can exploit them, and they'll be exploited by the same old faces.
The protests we have seen recently may just be the start. There are more to come. There is a growing unrest between the fans and the owners of big clubs, which is reflected in society in the gap between the rich and the poor. Football clubs are more than a business. They are integrated into communities. People follow them religiously all around the world. They should not be treated as a business and only interested in maximizing profit. Fans need to play a bigger part in the ownership of these clubs, but fans also need to realise that football needs to change for this to happen. What do you think? Do you think transfer fees and players' salaries should be capped? Do you think fans should have more involvement in football clubs? Do you think football clubs are businesses and they should only be run for profit maximising purposes, or do they have more of a moral obligation to society? Thank you for watching. Please comment below with your opinions. See you in the next video.